It's like every time I come, I discover something new here.
Exactly. All right. Good evening, members of QFS. We have with us in the house extraordinaire Mr. Abdullah Mulla,
Hey,
director, filmmaker, writer.
Ooh.
Abdullah, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's excellent.
Thank
All
you.
right, Abdullah. Welcome to the show. First of all,
Yep.
QFS. Congratulations. You are one of our first members.
I'm very happy.
Excellent. And if you could do us a little favor and just give us a brief on exactly what you do and how long you've been in the film industry.
Right. So where do I begin? I started off with the film industry back in not too long ago, in 2013. It started off as a hobby. I just moved back from studying in the UK. I studied medical engineering, actually. And then when
That's
I came,
awesome.
yeah, and then when I came back, I did a workshop with Doha Film Institute it's called the 7-day filmmaking challenge. So you get to write a film in a week and then shoot it for 1 day. And that was basically my introduction to filmmaking, because my interest in filmmaking initially was into the writing aspect, because I loved to do creative writing. So yeah, started off from there and went from workshop to to an internship to production assistant work, slowly going up as assistant producer, third AD, second AD, and so forth. And yeah, I directed and wrote 3 short films.
That's a great. Could you give us a really quick understanding of what those 3 films are?
Yes, so my first short film was part of a competition. It's called Old Airport Road, and it was part of a competition done by the Sahha sort of health insurance company that is not with us anymore, and it was with.
They're still around. It's just,
Are they? Oh,
know.
good. So it was under the theme of care. So I pitched an idea of film that I said is about the lack of care. So I did it, and it was about this person who is we see sort of a day of his life, where we as an audience see him being with all these people, and only realizing in the end that he's actually been all alone the whole time.
Great.
So it was my first sort of attempt as a director, and thankfully I won the competition. I was very happy with that, and it was premiered at Ajial, I believe 2014.
Okay, and you said you did 2 other pictures. Now,
Yes.
Are they both shorts? Or are they
Yes.
okay?
That I directed and I wrote 2 shorts. The other one is called Yellow Nights. That was part of a workshop, and it was a one-shot film. It's a film that's done only in one shot.
Oh wow!
That was quite a challenge, but I was.
Can you tell us a little bit about the
Yeah.
technical challenges that?
Yeah. Happy to, of course. So a technical challenge is because what happens in the film, there's quite a bit of not intricate, actually, just camera movement. Having no budget, we had to just, you can't just hire some sort of crane or anything like that. So
No steady cam then.
no, nothing at all. So we tried something called the Ronin, the DJI
Great,
Ronin.
yep.
That did not work because the film took place in a car.
Okay.
So something to do with how the car movement and the
Right.
and the gear just didn't fit. So
Okay.
it had to be what they call it, put it on a shoulder pad,
Nice.
and then just tried to do it. And actually, we had 2 cameramen
Okay.
during this one shot, where because the movie transitions from inside the car to the street. So
And this was shot all in the span of one night.
basically, yeah.
If I can ask you, how long did it take you to prep for that particular shot? Because there's a lot of intricate movements, a lot of
right.
characters,
Right.
movement around the scene.
Mhm.
How much forethought went into the development of that one particular scene?
Yeah, I mean, so firstly is the writing. Of course, we have to have something that happens in the story. And then there's things that I want to put in. My main purpose of the film happening in a car was the aesthetics of Doha. The light, the street lights you see are to me, are very yellow. At least when I
Okay,
grew up.
tungsten, right?
Yeah, and when you have this contrast between this yellow, harsh yellow, and then black. pretty
Right.
much. That's how I felt when I was young.
Okay.
So I brought that in, and I really wanted to do a film that had that aesthetic element. So I did that, and then I thought about. So I had that element, the aesthetics. Then I had a story that I wrote about 2 people having a dialogue as a couple, and then basically it's about getting the not only the movement of the characters, but the movement of the camera, the mise en scène, the blocking of the camera itself.
Okay.
So that was quite a lot of discussion. Me and the DOP, Abdurrahman Hassouna, that we discussed trying to figure out where should the camera be at any point during the story, and then how should it transition from where it is inside the car for almost more than half of the film to actually moving outside to the street. because technically that was a bit of a challenge. That's the biggest challenge, I think.
Oh, okay. Can I ask you,
Mm.
with the technical elements aside,
Mm-hmm.
what were some of the more creative motivations behind wanting to do it in one particular take versus multiple cuts?
Mm.
Was there a particular, vision that you had? Had it always started out as a one-take film, or did it evolve into that?
It started off as a one-take film because the idea of this workshop is because we had to have a film that is very short and can be shot almost in a day or two. So I thought, okay, if, the beauty of short films, you can tell a whole story of people's life in 1 minute if you had to. This film is not 1 minute; it's 7 minutes.
Okay.
But so I thought, okay, this is one event that happens throughout them. It's just one thing that happens, really. It's just people talking in one place. So I thought, why do I need to cut? And why can't I just shoot in one take?
Okay.
Having all this event happen, because it all happens in real time. There's no jump in time.
Mm-hmm.
There's no jump in place. It's one place. So I thought, okay,
Right.
let's just do it in one take and be that a challenge for us as sort of trying filmmakers who want to make it and learn and develop ourselves.
Okay. And do you feel as though the style in which it was shot, along with the technical elements, do you feel as though it helped sell the story? Did it help, how were audiences more adaptable to that particular shot?
Interesting. I mean, thankfully, doing it in one take made it stand out.
Okay.
Because it was people who watch it's like, oh, this is just one shot, and that's the film ends at a particular point. So that was interesting for the audience, and the story. I feel the story itself held up because the story took place at sort of one place, and it was there, and it was sort of a moment in time, if you will, because that's what they talk about short films being, not a whole story, but a moment in time of someone's life. At least that's what I learned, and then. Yeah, I mean, when I wrote this story, I just wanted to say something with it, and thankfully, I don't know if that translated into when people watched it, because with film, people watch it and they get whatever they want out of it.
Right. The
whatever they
audience
would
brings
get.
whatever baggage they
Exactly.
have to the cinema.
Exactly. Someone told me the term of it called narcissistic projection.
Oh, wow.
That's the
Okay.
term, apparently.
I did not know that. You see, you learn something every day on
Yes.
QFS.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Okay, cool. And if I'm not mistaken, you are currently in the development of your third film?
Yeah, it's in post-production. We shot it just about 2 months in May, before Ramadan. And then during the month, I was personally editing, doing a rough cut, which is sort of the first stage of post-production, which we just finished, completed a rough cut, me and the editor, Makki, Abdul Jabbar. And now we're in the process of getting some animation done.
Okay.
And the VFX.
Okay,
the
great.
Filmhouse.
Now, you as an
Shout out.
artist, an accomplished filmmaker here within the industry of Doha, Doha's industry is still very young. You're recognized as being one of the better filmmakers. Let me ask, what were some of your films growing up? Your inspirations? What drove you to film? Has it always been your interest?
I mean, growing up, I always loved film, and what made me love a film, it's not necessarily its colors or aesthetics. And if I'm honest, it's always been story driven. If it's heavy on the story, character development, then I love it. So that's growing up. I loved watching films. I always watched films.
What were some of your favorite films?
I would say to this day, I mean, when people ask that question, the film that always comes to mind is The Fountain.
Okay.
It's by Darren Aronofsky. He made Requiem for a Dream.
Nice.
And more recently, I think it was Noah. I think
He's very visually intense. I mean, he
Of
has a lot of
Yeah.
subtext in his
Oh, yeah.
visual elements
Oh, yeah.
with colors and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Even though his first one was a pie,
Mhm.
first feature is black and white.
Okay.
But it is very full of texture, full of. Even I remember there's something I don't forget about that film, which I was surprised how much thought was put into it. There's a scene where a character goes into a shop, and the shop they're playing the Quran.
Okay.
So it's in Arabic, obviously.
Great.
And the film has some elements of Kabbalism, Judaism. I believe that's the background of the director.
A whole mixture of different
Yeah.
religions
So,
and
so
everything.
when the Quran was playing, what was interesting was the verses.
Mm-hmm.
So most I will not know what that is. It's not translated into the thingy.
Right.
But because I know Arabic, thankfully,
Right.
it actually talks about the character's situation in a way.
That is so
reflects-
cool. Yeah.
So I thought, oh wow, that's so amazing that even that the director or
Those
the writer,
other elements
they
that are
really thought
injected,
of it.
exactly.
These little things that a lot of people might not just pass through, doesn't matter for them. But even that was put there because it is a piece of work that is whole, and not everything has, which I loved. It was put to thought, and why is it there, and how does it have to be there? So right, The Fountain is one of my favorite films because it's a film that blends many genres, blends from romance to drama to science fiction to fantasy and even spirituality a little bit. So I loved how it was able to blend this sort of all this beautiful elements of film storytelling, and does it very well and very beautifully. And I for me, every time I watch it so far has been a beautiful experience.
Great.
It's now actually we're at the 10th anniversary of that film.
Nice. All right, moving on. Let's
Yes.
I ask all my guests this basically, and it's a question of inspiration as to where story ideas originate. And a lot of people, the beauty of film is that a lot of people bring their personal experiences and, their lives and make their pictures out of that. Can I ask you, with a particular film like Yellow Nights, what drove you to that particular story?
Right. With the Yellow Nights, I started writing just whatever. This is sort of my process. At least with this film, was to write whatever came to my mind, to my heart, and I just wrote something. And it started off as, okay, I wrote it, and then I looked at it then, and I asked myself, why? What's the point of this? Why do these people say these things? And then I thought of it a lot, and then I realized, okay, the point of this, at least in my mind, is hope.
Okay.
There's a central theme to me of hope, where this character does not believe in hope, and then in the process of life in this way say no, and the character's journey is that he believes life is not worth living,
Right.
and then when his life was just about to be taken from him, but it doesn't, he feels like, thank God I'm alive.
Okay.
Even though
so there's two sequential stories basically counteracting one another.
In a sense, there's a theme, so in a way, the events of the film that he doesn't have control of give him a sense of hope.
Okay.
And he thought, well, life was just pointless, and why are we alive? All this, where the character was coming from, and then this little event happens. It's something that, if it was any more severe, it would have taken his life. It doesn't. It was, oh, thank God. It was an accident, so he doesn't die from it. It just hurts his car.
Right.
And he thinks, oh, thank God, I'm alive.
Okay, so
At least.
it's a matter of, it's kind of a coming of age story, would
Kind
you
of
say?
existential crisis.
An existential crisis.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you find yourself driven to those? I mean, everyone's driven to more human stories. But do you find yourself within a particular subgenre of film? I mean, would you ever want to tackle something that is maybe a little bit more controversial, or something that asks questions of our perception?
Yeah.
Have you ever looked at, what are some of the films that you've wanted to make that are still, in their primordial phase?
Right. Yeah. So what I would like to make, I believe, is something sometimes go from films that are, with like sort of in the sense in the vein of neorealism.
Okay.
Where this is life as it is.
Right. So
But
you're not big into then fantasy. You want
No, I am. This is my
okay.
next point, where I have that, and then also want to make fantasy. I want to make things that are not real, surreal. If you will.
Okay.
And that's my third film.
Okay,
My
right.
third film is very surreal. So I feel I'm go between these two because they serve to be able to tell stories in a different way, in a way that cinema can tell, than I think not other mediums will have a hard time doing. With the realism, sorry if I'm blabbering on.
No worries.
I think
please.
with a bit of realism, I this is my personal opinion anyway. It's a way of a challenge for us, the writer, to make a story that it doesn't feel faked or biased, which I think I've seen some filmmakers who make a bad way of doing. One of them is Wachowski's. Even though
So
they're great.
neutrality is essential.
Not necessarily neutrality, but empathy with every character.
Okay.
And I believe great film for this that I've seen that really showed that point. It's called The Search. It's
Okay.
It's
I know of it. It's great.
It's 2012. Actually,
Yes.
it's a recent version of. I think there's an older one. It was about Chechnya,
Right.
and it showed a child who lost his family, a person who was a soldier, and a journalist. So all these journeys, and all these characters, I felt the writer loved each one, even though some of them were despicable, but gave them that sort of three dimensions, as one would say. that make them human,
Right.
and and believable and all that.
So you're looking for more relatable characters that are flawed, essentially.
And of course, all humans are flawed. All
Course.
humans are not evil for the sake of evil. They're
Mhm.
evil for whatever reason. Maybe they think they're doing good or whatever it could be. God knows. So that is the truth of life. I think part of the truth of life. And then you have the other side with fantasy and surrealism. And all that is a way of telling a different kind of stories, perhaps through archetypes.
Okay.
Perhaps where characters carry themes
Mhm.
within them that the writer wants to tell. For example, we watched recently American Beauty.
Yeah, we watched that recently, and for those of you who have seen it, it's a very deep, motivated story about
Exactly.
people changing and realizing what
Exactly.
is true.
So although that film might seem like it's just your standard drama about a dysfunctional family, I do believe there are a lot of themes within it that are not just telling the story of people's life. There are the reasons why these characters have these motivations that the storyteller wants to tell. For example, the relationship to materialism or material
Of
and
course.
things. I believe that was at one point in films I saw that there being a theme where one character, for example, the character who was the neighbor, the son of the neighbor,
Right.
his relationship to things and materials were everything was beautiful. And it was so beautiful, it was so overwhelming for him.
Right. I also like how Mendes was able to portray characters who originally seemed as being normal and stable as being really the unstable ones,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Yes,
having all
absolutely.
these incidences and issues within their lives.
Exactly.
For those of you who've not seen it, we won't ruin it for
No,
you,
no, no,
but
no.
we highly suggest that you go ahead and see it.
Yes. It's a classic, I think.
I've been wanting to ask Mr. Abdullah this for a long time,
Yes.
basically. For those of you who are listening and planning to make your film, obviously it begins with writing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your regiment is when you start writing? What does it have to be in a particular environment? Do you have to have a certain piece of music playing? I mean, everybody's got something to
Yeah.
get them in the mood.
Yeah.
What works for you?
So that's a very good question, actually. There are a lot of things that I think that help me get into the mode of it. I feel sometimes one of my flaws is I'm a chronic procrastinator.
Okay.
That's my
So
issue.
pressure.
So not necessarily pressure doesn't help, but it's just getting into the mode, the phase of it. It's sort of when you in it deep enough, and then everything else you forget about becomes foggy. And then for me, a lot of it is not necessarily meditation, but getting into the mode of the story. So music is a part of it. So I actually, for example, I will play for a film a sketch that I'm working on for the future. There's a piece of music that I really enjoy that fits in that world. So I listen to it as I write
Okay.
to help me make the story come to life in a way. It helps me visualize sort of the world. Part of it is one thing I learned about myself that helped me become a better writer is I find I shouldn't think too much, and it's just
So just go with it,
just
basically.
go and write stream of consciousness, as they say,
Right.
and then see what happens, and I come back and think about it afterwards, and see what works.
How many drafts do you have to go through? Obviously, for those of you who are writers out there, you know that you have to go through multiple drafts, and usually best practice dictates that you just let, as Abdullah just mentioned, stream of consciousness, freedom of thoughts come out, and then you go back and edit it. How long do you, as soon as you're done writing the initial draft, do you go back and say, okay, now it's time to cut away, it's time to refine it?
So what I would do, if I write it and then I know that I'll come back to something and change it knowingly, then I'll do that straight away. But I think best practice and what I would do is usually put it in a drawer or in a folder in your computer for a week.
How are you with criticism?
Oh, very happy. It's very important.
Okay.
It's very important. I think most importantly for any filmmaker who is learning it and developing themselves to always look for criticism. Look for where I'm.
Positive
doing
criticism.
Wrong. Constructive.
Correct.
Positive or negative, constructive.
Right.
That can help them see. Okay, this is where I'm lacking. Where can I? How can I make it better? For example, I know as a writer, my weakness is in dialogue.
Okay.
So I always recognize that weakness, and when I come back and I ask people, is this something there? And I try to learn about dialogue writing, like Tarantino, and I watch all these videos
Sure.
about how he does it.
Exchange of, verbal word
Exactly,
and
and
spoken
how
word.
that relates to a character. Because
Right.
what I found in bad writing, for example, is a writer you can see all the sound the same.
Of course.
Because
It's just
written
monotone
by one
throughout.
person. It's
Right.
written by one person, so you can tell even though it's 10 people, a man and woman and another child speaking, it's all one person.
I mean,
because
we've
the
seen a
same
lot of
words.
films out there that were pretty much written for like they're only written for trailers basically,
Right? It's okay.
to where every, piece of dialogue is a promotional piece for the film,
God.
and there's no dimension or depth to anything that the characters say.
Yes.
And unfortunately, those are the films that sell.
Really?
Well, from what I've seen recently.
Oh gosh. yeah.
Okay, great. So the young filmmakers out there and people that are aspiring to break into Doha's industry or to, become a filmmaker, not, what piece of advice can you suggest to them?
The first thing that comes to mind is humility. Always, it's when you come in and you want to be a filmmaker and you want to, make it big, or you want to make sort of something beautiful, or however, whatever reason it might be, be prepared to get your hands dirty, and always be humble, always be open to learn. And sometimes, like I remember at one point, I was a production assistant, and it might seem for me at the time that what am I doing here? Am I learning anything? I'm just getting people coffee or something.
Right, yeah.
As you start, but then of course you learn. You do learn. You just don't realize.
So
how much
it's
you learn.
just a matter of basically getting yourself in the environment
Oh,
and
yeah.
getting attached to, different productions and whatnot.
I would say that's definitely a beginning point. Like for example, I never thought I could work as a freelance filmmaker. If I'm really honest, I never thought I could do it. But after getting, thankfully, somehow getting enough experience, I was able to be paid enough that I quit my job at a bank.
Great.
And I saw, okay, I'm gonna be freelance filmmaker, and it makes me enough money to survive.
Okay. And with now a few films under your belt and another one that is in post-production that's about to be finished,
Yep.
where do you see yourself in 5 years with regards to film? Do you see yourself continuing as an artist, getting better? Or do you see yourself maybe, in a particular focus like writing, directing, producing? Which area interests you most and why?
Yeah. So I thought of what I'm doing in the next 5 years, and what I want to do is actually start working. Hopefully, I'll be finished writing my first feature. Already, it is in my mind. I know what I want to write about,
Perfect.
and the story it does exist.
Okay.
It's just so for me in the next 5 years, I want to be finished with writing it, and hopefully in pre-production or in production of that film.
Okay.
And it'll be sort of the inspiration of that story, if it does come to life in the way I want it, is the Bicycle Thieves, the Italian film.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that you find most passion in writing, in the
Oh, yeah.
development of story and character.
100%. I mean, two things I want to try is write for someone else to direct,
Okay.
and direct for someone else's writing.
Okay.
Because that's for me is an interesting experience. I
Right.
believe.
It's one of those talents that you have to really kind of make your first few films.
Right.
I know the old edict that you have to make a lot of garbage before you make one or two
Oh, yeah?
good films.
Fair enough.
At least that's what I've been told. For our listeners out there, again, I'm going to go back to our industry in particular because Doha is still very young with regards to the community. What are some resources and assets that they can pull from in order to get connected with different local productions that you yourself have had experience?
So initially, first, Doha Film Institute is a great resource.
Okay.
For me, I took an internship with them, and that helped a lot with me getting experience, getting work, and being on a set with a proper film set, not a commercial, not a TVC, but making something that is art, or hopefully art, with 30 people or less. So that was a very valuable experience for me. And then with getting involved with people around, it's you have networking events, you have just getting to know the right people, getting people's cards, having maybe your own cards.
Networking is a huge part of our industry.
Oh yeah. Because when people know you, then or they know your work, then they'll can trust you with whatever they want to make. And then there's resources like Qatar Film Society, which helped me get a job at one point.
Nice.
Shout out.
Thank you.
So yes, there's a lot of there's a lot of resources that one has to be open. So one of the skills of a filmmaker is actually being other than whatever comes with it, with the writing and the production skills and what have you, is actually being someone who's
motivated to just get out there.
Go get a
scrape their knees, a lot of tears, a lot of crying.
And knows how to talk to people.
Oh,
and,
true.
Has that skill of conversation and stuff like that. That can get him sort of, people think, he's someone I want to be
reliable
in my production.
type.
Reliable,
right.
And I like to see him in my production.
Perfect.
Stuff like that.
Okay, cool. Well, one last question before we end this first session of QFS Podcast is your motivation as an artist. And let me phrase this correctly before it sounds kind of ridiculous.
Okay.
Besides your favorite films, have you ever experimented with any other forms of art that you feel have been influential on your productions? I mean, have you read particular stories, drawn, painted, spoken to certain people? Yeah. Where do you pull your substance from primarily?
Yeah.
Aside from your own, experiences,
Sure. Yes,
is it people or environment?
Of course. So when it comes to other forms of art, literature and comic books actually is an influencer, particularly graphic novels.
Okay.
I would say one of the works that had a huge influence on me and was the Sandman graphic novels by Neil Gaiman.
Nice.
They're a great piece of work, and about 10 or 11 volumes of great art and great story that is very deep and very archetypical. It's wonderful. And then you have I enjoy these stories actually, and even when we're reading novels that are sort of talking in philosophy and themes. So one of the ones I enjoyed reading at one point is called The Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
It's a beautiful story about a senior devil writing letters to a junior devil, trying to teach him how to tempt man away from God, or the enemy, as he puts it.
Right.
So that was a very wonderful, interesting story written during the World War era. But that was beautiful. And also then outside of a realm of art, I do find my influence coming from spirituality a lot. I mean, as a form of trying to understand our humanity, understand where our deficiencies and how we can become better people on earth. And then, of course, there is something that my little interest on the side is with political philosophy.
Okay.
And sort of organizing society and how that works and what does that mean.
The whole logistics and tangibility.
Not necessarily logistics, but the morality of how do you organize society and how the consequence, which sometimes usually we don't know. It's because you're talking about humans who are very
fragile and
chaotic.
Exactly.
Because everybody has the whole experience. It's amazing.
Sure.
It's wonderful.
It's that whole science behind trying to
chaos theory kind of thing. I don't know.
Bring together a crowd and multiple personalities. Anyways,
yes.
We're gonna end it there. Thank you so very much,
no problem,
Mr. Abdullah Al-Mulla, director extraordinaire. You can find his work. Do you have any links that you can share with people on either YouTube, Vimeo, or?
Unfortunately, my films at the moment are not available to the public.
Okay.
But my first film, Old Airport, will be in the next few months.
Okay,
available.
Perfect. For those of you who are interested in checking out Abdullah, you can read up on him on QFS. We're going to hopefully, if all things go to plan, we're going to show some of his links for his work and help spread it out. So stay tuned till next week, and we're going to have another guest on talking about the technical aspects of guerrilla filmmaking. This is Tariq signing off.
Thank you very much. And Abdullah Al-Mulla.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.